This time on Second Chance Ohana.
Hey guys! Today our video is going to look a little different. We're going to be doing an all-in-one paint review. And this is for our knowledge, so we know which all-in-one paint is really going to work best for our furniture flips. We have used all of what we're going to test out today, and we really do like them. But we're going to be testing them on durability, workability, as well as the appearance. So join us as we see which all-in-one paint is the best for furniture flips. Aloha, I'm Dani. In 2016, I moved from Maui to Arizona with my husband to be closer to my mom and pops, who lived just a few miles away. On our journey, Kyle and I expanded our family by adopting 3 tweens, and of course Barkley, who helps make sure everyone feels like part of the Ohana. Mom and I love to hunt for used furniture and restore it, because it's fun to be creative, use power tools, and of course make money. And because, like people, sometimes furniture just needs a second chance. Alright, so the paints we're going to be testing today is just a basic latex paint. This one specifically is a Benjamin Moore interior paint with primer built in. And then we've added calcium carbonate to make it a DIY chalk paint. Next we have a folk art home decor chalk paint. This came from Amazon. It's definitely on the low end for price of different chalk paints. Next we have what seems to be a fan favorite, Fusion Minerals all-in-one paint. And then Melange's recent One line, which is an all-in-one mineral paint. And finally we have Dixie Belle's Silk all-in-one mineral paint.
We started off with 2 very different boards. Dani is using a piece of plywood which has a wood veneer on it, and it's a raw wood finish. And I'm using a particle board which is covered in a melamine surface, which is very slick and slippery. So we took those boards, and just like as with our furniture, we cleaned them very well, rinsed them, and then we scuff sanded them with 180 grit sandpaper. After the prep, we sectioned off the boards with our tape. So we created 5 rows, 1 for each of the different paints, and we also created 4 columns, and that will be for the 4 different types of applications that we're testing.
And before we get started painting, I just want to point out that the 2 middle sections on each board have been primed as part of the test as well. All right, time to start this test. We're just going to go ahead and start painting that first row with this white DIY chalk paint. After we get that on, we're going to move right along to that black folk art chalk paint. And we're just doing thin coats here because each section is going to get 2 layers. So we're including these chalk paints under the all-in-ones. Obviously it's not mineral paint, but we're interested because so many people love chalk paint to see how it holds up with the durability, how it feels, and the appearance of it. So we're curious to see how this does in comparison to the more expensive all-in-one mineral paints.
So the great thing about both of these paints is that they're very affordable. But I don't really like the way they paint on. They just don't go on very smoothly.
And I personally hate chalk paints, but if this test shows that they are a great value and hold up really well, then it might be worth it to consider. Barkley is normally the happiest workshop dog. Unfortunately for him, today, this is not very interesting. There's no loud saws, there's no crazy noises, and he is a little bored out of his mind. But Barkley, I promise, this is great information for us. This is important work.
Okay, note to self, use a stir stick. Don't try to shake the jar when the lid's off. Oh, in case you missed it, Pops really wanted to put in a slow motion of my oops.
So now we move on to the all-in-one mineral paints. And these are the ones that we hear a lot about in the furniture flipping community. If you're wondering why we've tested chalk paints, because they technically aren't all-in-one. They don't have primer built in, they don't have top coats built in. The point of that was to have them as our control in this test. And now we're gonna use the paints that many furniture flippers do use. So we're trying to find our favorite brand at these different price points to see what's gonna work best for us. So we're starting with the Fusion mineral paint. It's my first time using Fusion. Mom's used this for one other project. And wow, it goes on so smoothly, especially compared to the chalk paint. And the coverage is great just on this first coat.
Hey, I just wanted to point out that all of the all-in-one paints that we're testing today are about the same amount of money per ounce. And they're about 2 to 3 times more expensive than the chalk style paints that are out there. I just wanted to mention that we are not affiliated with any of these paint companies, and all of these opinions are strictly our own. We just encourage you guys to discover which paints work the best for yourselves. Moving on to the Melange One. You know, I wasn't very impressed with how it went on. I thought that first coat it went on great, but it didn't have very good coverage. So I was a little worried that I would need more than 2 coats of this. So in the end, it really only did need 2 coats. That second coat went on beautifully.
All right, and our final all-in-one mineral paint we're testing is this Dixie Belle Silk All-in-One. And you know, it goes on really smoothly as well. Really, all 3 of these paints side by side, they all feel a tad different when we put them on, but they're all high quality. You can tell they're all worth their money. I'm curious to see which one performs the best in the final durability test.
After the first coat of paint dried, we went back and lightly sanded over all of the surfaces. We use a fine grit, usually between a 220 or higher, depending on what we're sanding. But in this case, we used a 220. And the reason we're doing this is because we just prefer a very smooth surface. This is not a necessary step, but it sure works well for us.
So now that we're done adding the second coat to each of these, we're just going to set these boards aside, let them fully dry before we add the polyurethane to a couple of the columns.
Okay, so after the paints had thoroughly dried and I did another quick sanding on them, I applied 2 coats of our bare polyurethane. I put those on just 2 of the sections. One section was a section that had primer and 2 coats of paint, and the other section was the section that only had 2 coats of paint.
Most paints in poly need 3 to 4 weeks to fully cure. In this circumstance, we gave it 6 weeks, so all our test findings would be completely accurate. We are back. It has been 6 weeks since we last touched these boards. So we did the coats of primer, coats of paint, and coats of poly, and now everything is fully cured, and it is time to rate the appearance of each of these paints, as well as their durability, and we are excited to find out these results. So I wish the camera could fully show you guys what we can feel and what we can see with our human eyes. Unfortunately, you're not gonna be able to see, so you're just gonna have to listen and take our word for it. but I promise we'll try to explain as clearly as we can. At first glance, it's very clear that all of these have a very flat finish, with the exception of Melange One. That one has a little sheen to it, and it has a satin-like finish. The 3 all-in-one mineral paints are really nice and smooth, but those chalk paints, they are rough to the touch, very gritty. Folk art chalk paint looks quite nice. The white DIY chalk paint definitely didn't have full coverage with 2 coats. You'd have to do at least 3, maybe even 4, especially if you're going over a darker wood. Alright, so let's talk brush strokes real quick. On that melamine pressboard, we really couldn't see any brush strokes in any of the 5 paints. But on my raw wood board, I saw brush strokes pretty evident in 4 of the 5 paints. The only paint that didn't have any visible brush strokes was the Melange One.
I just wanted to note that on both boards, for all 5 of the paints, the sections that had polyurethane looked great. I would be happy with any of those finishes on my furniture.
So in order to test the durability, we're going to be using simple plastic forks and really digging in, trying to scratch these bad boys up. So quick findings. I did not realize how important polyurethane was for the durability. After scratching all the surfaces, the 2 columns with polyurethane were protected so much more better than all the rest. And you know, the chalk paints didn't hold up well at all. No matter how well they were protected with polyurethane, they scratched up quite easily, as did the Fusion mineral paint. The Melange One and the Silk though, very impressive. Those are durable with or without polyurethane.
One thing that really surprised me was that on the 2 sections that we used the primer, they didn't seem to be any more durable than the other sections. And I'm not sure why. I'd always heard previously that you need to use primer for the best adhesion. However, that didn't seem to be the case on these 2 boards. I will, however, say that we will continue to use primer anytime we have a problem with bleed through or with staining or with odors.
Well, I have an obvious clear winner for the overall who wins the best all-in-one mineral paint. Have you guys figured it out yet?
It's pretty obvious.
It's pretty obvious to you too.
1, 2, 3.
Melange One. In all categories. And yes, it's more expensive than these options, but this apparently lasts the test of time.
And we are not sponsored by Melange. Just want to let you know that.
No, we really want to find this out for ourselves, spending our own money, what product we want to continually use moving forward. Mm-hmm. And right now, Melange blows them out of the water, but now I feel like I also want to try other brands we haven't tried. But we'll stick with this for our go-to, for sure. We've created a graph of everything that we've rated, the workability, the appearance, and the durability of each of these 5 paints, and we rated them 1 through 5 in each of these categories. Hopefully this is helpful for you. Feel free to screenshot it, and we'll also include a link to it in the description below. Well, we hope this review was really helpful for you guys. We'd love to hear which paint you have found to be the absolute best, and if there's paints we haven't tried, let us know. We want to give them a whirl. But we're glad you joined us today, and we hope you learned something new. And have a great week. Aloha!